valuable time as I'm driving to go get a haircut. Wanted to take time to comment on some of the comments that Curtis has left me in my comment section. He was talking about how, you know, in a lot of real conversations you have with people who know you well, if you're trying to figure out your type, that should be the gold standard, or at least more reliable than a 1 hour typing session with somebody that's credible. Basically, more or less was his point, and I definitely I agree to an extent. Um, I think that there's a lot of data that, and crap, I've said this in the previous video I made about uh, you know what are the markers of objectivity when you're trying to figure out your own type or someone else's type. Yeah, I mean you can get into this endless cycle of trying to get greater and greater degrees of confidence of what your type is. And there's a certain threshold that you'll cross where you're basically wasting your time because the notion of type itself is is sorry, I'm getting confused. Um the notion of type already is just a model. It's a model of likeness, whatever you want to call it. You have certain way that you exist in the world, certain ways in which your brain operates, um, and all of those factors together results in your type. And your type has certain features. It has certain capacities, abilities, whatever you want to call it. Not necessarily abilities, but strengths, values, functions, all that kind of stuff. But the whole point is that it's a model. Uh, we're far more multifaceted than just being reduced to personality type. There are so many other factors that play into what people are and the way that they uh, live, right? And so I would say that there is a level of subjectivity in the people in your life that know you, which is they know aspects of you very well, but their ability to articulate why you're doing what you're doing, still, they're probably not going to be able to give you much on that front. Maybe they can. Um, and your family people also reinterpret what you're like based on what they perceive themselves to be. So there's a level of subjectivity that goes on to that. Parents, for example, try to see their kids in the best possible light because they reflect them. And so that could contaminate how objective your parent will be in explaining what you're like, for example. So I do think though that the more data you have um about a person, the more information, assuming you're an observant person. Bruh, shut up. Why's my phone going? My watch, bruh. Um, can you guys hear me? Hopefully, you guys can hear me. That would be, bruh. I would, I'd quit YouTube. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Um, and so you're not going to, you're like, you're working with all those factors. That's why I'm honestly best fit type. That kind of idea that you get an MBTI, I think, is somewhat helpful because it's not saying that you're going to be 100% certain about your type. It's saying, given all the factors that we have available to us, this is your best fit. And you just, okay, cool. You just kind of leave it there. Um, Now, I've been caught up in the temptation of wanting, like, sifting out bad information from good information that would that would in theory improve my either ability to defend my own type or just being able to understand my type and all these kinds of things. And it's also just interesting. I mean, once you decide to conclude a type for yourself on but you then a lot of the fun kind of goes out the window. I mean, you still have a bunch of other people that you don't know their type, and so uh you can start playing with that, thinking about that. But the point is, there are better ways and worse ways to uh, figure out your type. Um, and I've talked about this before, but there are certain themes from your life that will emerge that people who know you well have witnessed, right? And they can probably articulate certain things that would be insightful that maybe you don't even know about yourself, right? And that may not also come out in a typing interview. So the point, the even greater point is, it's good to do typing sessions with reliable diagnosticians, socionics, um, diagnosticians, people who know the system well. Um, but it's even of greater value to have long form conversations with these people, or people that are interested in the theory, or just the whole point is that you have consistent conversation where what you're like comes out naturally, right? Um, and those are areas where you can't really fake it that much because the longer you talk with someone, and the more consistently you talk with someone, probably the less strength you have in being able to modulate yourself over time. It would get exhausting, right? So you just eventually be yourself. Maybe that's a little naive, but I would just imagine that that's the energy expenditure to subtly change yourself or kind of give people an image that's likable or whatever the case is would get would get exhausting. Um, and so it would seem like you can't really withstand that pressure for that long. But so, have you read Notes from the Underground? I have not. Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky. Um, and I think those were good comments that Curtis left. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that they don't know that they don't know. Um, I don't know. There's other comments that he left. I'm trying to think about the other stuff that he left. No, I have no idea what you're talking about. What else? Um, there was something else that he was saying that was good. What was it? Left like three comments. Dang, I'm blanking out. No, I was not talking about philosophy. I was talking about. I mean, there's elements of philosophy in what I was talking about, but I was talking about uh figuring out your socionics type. But I mean, again, there's some level of philosophy embedded in probably a lot of my videos. Philosophy is pretty juicy. Damn, also, did you want to talk about philosophy? I've never gotten into Dostoevsky. I've heard that. I mean, I know he's a very what, like yeah. else? Good old philosophy. I've never didn't Dostoevsky write Crime and Punishment? Isn't that one of his popular works? I'm not a big and I think that's is it a mystery novel or a fiction novel? I'm not a huge dude, I can't read fiction. I don't know what it is. I just can't do it. I get very bored. And there's another facet of I mean just like paying attention to character development or all the details about each individual character and what makes them uh who they are. You would think that would be interesting because, I'm interested in personality theory, but for some reason, when it's fiction, I don't care because it's not real. Even though there's aspects of a character that might resemble aspects of a real person, because it's fiction, I just automatically tune out to it. And I don't really care about any of those details that are critical for the plot, critical for the entire story, all those subtle nuances about a character. It's like, I don't, all the just descriptive details too in fiction books is just painful. The Jesse was cunning and intelligent, and he walked past the tree, and all it's like all that stuff. I'm like, bro, I don't care about Jesse being cunning, and I don't care about this tree. I don't care about the tree. It's a snooze fest. But yeah, I've heard that psychological, less mystery, more guilt and morality. Yeah, really great book. Yeah, I mean that would be one that I would try to give a try, but I get too absorbed in fiction sometimes, and all the details start feeling heavy, almost painful. That's why books like this can hit hard. Yeah, to each their own. Like some people like fiction, some don't. A lot of people, like my fiance, my sister, love fiction books. I can't do it. I had to read a lot of fiction books for school. I hated it. I hated it. Then I started realizing that textbooks and just nonfiction was my lane, and that's what really started me to uh, enjoy reading. Like textbooks are juicy, bro. There's no nonsense. It's all factual information. It's all there. It's all cleanly uh, organized, and um, you can pick up really any part of a textbook and get something out of it. It's just there's visuals. I mean, it's like you can't compete with that. That's just that's they're just not they're just juicy. But and there are some philosophy books that can be like that too. That you have to really dig to find gold and dig through a lot of vagueness and you know, a lot of that can be pretty exhausting. Can be pretty exhausting. That's why I like surveys of philosophy. There's a book that I have called uh well, one I have like the history of Western philosophy. Then I have another like Christianity plus Western philosophy survey plus apologetics. So it basically goes in and tells you uh all of the relevant like philosophy since the ancient Greeks, like Greek philosophy and some of the presuppositions embedded in Greek philosophy and how to understand those worldviews for apologetically relevant reasons, being able to compare the Christian worldview against some of these different disparate, you know, philosophical worldviews, all that kind of stuff. That stuff is interesting. But once you start getting into like individual works, especially from first, from primary sources, it can be pretty daunting unless you find like modern translations and stuff. But I have some philosophy books that I'll peer into a little bit. I have a Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, which is classic. I have David Hume's uh, works where it has a bunch of his different works in one volume, which is interesting. Those are good books too because again, you can pick up and read anywhere because the subheading kind of tells you what's going to be in that part of the book, and it's a little bit more approachable that way. But I can't tell if this person. I don't know if you're a bot or not. I check grammar, and when grammar is precise, I assume it's not a real person because most people's grammar is not this precise. And and uh, but if you are, I apologize. I'm trying to sift out all the bots. It's funny though because some of them are, and they don't say they are, which is like kind of alarming. Um, but yeah, yeah, you don't have to read it straight through. It's just a lot for one person. I ain't got time for that. But you can also Google any, idea in philosophy and understand it pretty quickly. So, but yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have. Peace.